you can finish your thought, and then just to give you an idea of how fast it is.
Okay.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, we're ready.
Sounds good. All right, coaches, which car would you rather be driving? We have one that has an empty tank, and there's one that has a full tank. Raise your hand. Would you rather be driving the empty tank? No.
Who?
Nobody? Okay, raise your hand if you'd rather be driving the full tank. Anybody? Yes.
Absolutely.
I see some hands. Okay, then I click the next slide to the
Okay.
why. Why would you be driving the full tank?
Because I wouldn't be panicked that my car was going to run out of gas like I was last night in the middle of a snowstorm.
Oh, I bet less stress. Okay, especially in a snowstorm. Anybody else? Why would you drive the full?
I ran out of gas once, and that was no fun.
Wasn't fun? Was it stressful? Yeah, especially when you're trying to get somewhere. I bet. So you'd rather drive the full tank as well?
Yes.
Understandable. Okay, then let's switch to the next slide. Cool.
Do you want this one?
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine. What we're going to talk is what PCA calls the emotional tank, and it's based off lots of research that shows that people actually have similar tanks, whether it be you and me or different coaches or athletes. They have empty tanks and they have full tanks. So I'm wondering if you guys could describe what it's like when a player shows up to your practice with an empty tank. They walk into your practice and you can just tell their tank is empty. What does that look like? Feel free to shout it out.
I think their body language is just very, they're down. They're not running to practice. They're kind of slow and lethargic, and maybe not making eye contact, and just taking their time.
Taking their time, lethargic.
Not making eye contact. You can kind of sense if they're not with you.
They're not with you. Yeah, their nonverbals are pretty huge, aren't they? Yeah, I work with high school girls, and I have to admit that I know immediately when a girl shows up and her tank is empty. Her body, it's written all over that she doesn't want to be there and that she'd rather be doing something else. And I'm wondering, with these players that have these empty tanks, do you think that affects the teammates during that too? Yeah,
absolutely.
Greatly. It kind of trickles down. What if that player is a captain that shows up with this low E tank?
Not good.
Yeah, not good. So at PCA, we describe this as the player being pessimistic, gives up more easily, and is less coachable. Do you think those are pretty big factors when coaching?
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah. And I'm wondering if we can come up with maybe five reasons why a player would show up to practice with a low emotional tank. Things that are completely out of your control that they just walk in the door with. We name 5?
They had a rough day at school.
Rough day at school? What did you say, Michael? Say that one more time. I couldn't hear you.
A breakup with their boyfriend.
Yeah, I know that with those high school girls, definitely. Okay, what else?
I coached in the spring, and it was prom time, and I'm telling you, coaching high school girls at prom time was so stressful between dresses and dates and shoes, and any other day there was low tanks all over the place.
Lots of distractions away from the court. Yeah.
Parent expectations of them.
Parent expectations weighing heavy on their emotional tanks. Okay, what else? We need one more to make that 5.
How about just like they don't feel they perform well in the game yesterday, if there was a game?
Okay. So they're kind of feeling bad about their performance. It's carrying forward. Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, now let's go to the other tank, a full tank. Let's describe some characteristics of a player that walks into your practice with a full emotional tank. What does that look like?
They're just aggressive and excited, and you can just tell they're just beaming, and they, being very nice and outwardly friendly to everybody around them. And, the yes coach, I kind of say they're like the puppy dogs. Like their tails are wagging, and they're like, yeah, what else am I going to do? What else can I do for you?
I like that analogy.
They're there early. You can tell that they're ready right off the bat, and they're making eye contact and are eager to learn.
Those nonverbals are huge, you mentioned. Eager to learn. And if they're the captain of your team, do you think that plays out with the other players as well? Yeah, big time. So knowing the emotional tank level, or the level of your player's emotional tank, is super valuable. And one of the neat things is that you as coaches have more control over your player's emotional tank than you realize. And that's through the culture that you create with your team. Have you ever walked into a gym and you just felt the buzz, just the energy of the team? You see players high-fiving, you see You hear music going, you see players and coaches high-fiving, and the energy is just something it's hard to describe, but you feel it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that culture that I'm talking about that you can create with your team, that PCA calls the home team advantage, the portable home team advantage. That doesn't matter what happens before an athlete shows up to your practice or a game. As soon as they come in, they're immersed in that culture of fun and learning and competition. And that's what we want to help you guys create more of. So now we'll go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about how you drain the emotional tank and how you fill the emotional tank. And I was going to use your wonderful beach ball example that you played out. Do you want me to kind of go through that real quick?
If you want, sure, go ahead. Yep.
Okay. So did you watch this, Michael, where she has a beach ball?
Yep.
Okay. So which one of you would like to be the basket and which one of you would like to be the shooter?
I'd like to shoot.
All right, I'll be the basket.
Okay, Kelly, you get to be the basket. Michael, you're going to be the shooter. And when I say so, Michael, I have it reversed in my head. Michael, I want you to go ahead and make a shot. And Kelly, you're going to do whatever you can to make that shot go in. And then now I'm going to talk to the other participants that are here on this coaching workshop. You guys are going to be the fans and the teammates. And I want you to cheer as loud as you can with how grateful you are that your teammate made this shot. So go ahead and do the shot. And then we go. Wonderful.
Whoosh.
Ooh, cheering, loudness is going on.
Yay!
Yeah. Michael, how do you feel with all that enthusiasm behind you?
Pumped up. I can make every shot I'm going to shoot.
Awesome. How ready do you feel to make that next shot?
Extremely ready.
Someone passes you the ball, you're ready to go.
I'm going to be a ball hog.
Okay. I like that confidence. Okay, now let's go through a different scenario. So when I say so, Michael, I want you to shoot, and Kelly, I want to make sure he misses. Whatever you have to do to make that miss. And then you guys, other coaches over here, I want you guys to show however you want it. You can stand up, you can sit down, nonverbals of how disappointed you are that he missed that shot, maybe what else he should have done. So then let's go through that scenario.
Miss, air ball.
Boo.
Boo.
Yeah. You suck.
Come on.
Michael, how do you feel now?
Deflated.
Deflated. And I saw you shake your head. You're feeling down. Yeah. How ready are you to shoot again if someone passes you?
I suck. I'm not gonna. No.
Yeah. Your E tank is pretty low right now, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where I refer to the slide and say this is what we're talking about of how we drain emotional tanks and how we fill emotional tanks. So as you notice with that example, there was criticism and correction, sarcasm, ignoring, and nonverbals. And as you coaches know, nonverbals are huge. Can you think of ways that we express that to our players sometimes when we're upset if someone misses a shot? Yeah. Hands over the face. What else? What else do coaches do?
Shaking their
head.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting their head down.
Mm-hmm. And that greatly affects the players. I've even seen coaches kick chairs, throw clipboards, and that has lasting effects on players, often way more than verbal communication. So now let's try something different. And Michael, I want you to shoot again when I ask you to. And Kelly, let's make sure he still doesn't make the shot. But I want to offer truthful and specific praise to Michael in a way that lets him know that, hey, we appreciate it and you worked hard, but in a truthful and specific way. Do you guys have any ideas of how you would do that?
No.
No. Yeah.
It'd be hard.
That would be hard. Michael, do you have any ideas?
Talking about their technique, making sure that encouraging them that, hey, you did most everything right, and
Oh, you kind of paused.
I think he froze.
You froze.
He'll come back.
Okay, he'll come back. So maybe going over some examples. Oh, he's still frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
sometimes he can
us.
still see us. He doesn't realize. He can still hear us and hear it sometimes, but he doesn't realize.
Thanks, Michael. And I would challenge you guys to offer truthful and specific praise that doesn't use the phrase "good job" or "well done." Or one of my personal favorites is "nice work." Nice work about what? What am I saying? Am I saying you worked really hard to get open, or you worked hard to to get that shot off. So now let's do that one more time where Michael, you're going to shoot, you're going to miss, and then you guys over here are going to offer some truthful and specific praise. And we go through all that.
We shoot, we miss.
Wonderful.
Good follow through, good hustle.
Wonderful. And then offering Michael another time to share. How was that for you?
Maybe he's still frozen.
He's still frozen. And I imagine he'd say his e-take isn't all the way down, that it's somewhat there and what that experience was like for him.
I'm going to eject him from the call so he can get back on.
Okay.
Sometimes if he realizes he's off, then he'll join back in. Go ahead.
Okay. And then going through another way we can fill emotional tanks is expressing appreciation, listening, and nonverbals. And I'm wondering, do you guys have any ideas how to express nonverbals in a way that can fill emotional tanks of your athletes?
I had someone today, Dan Hawkins, who's in this course, and he said that he conditions himself to clap and smile no matter what goes on. So when he's coaching football from the sidelines, whether it's positive or negative, he said, sometimes I clap harder because I'm really frustrated, but sometimes it's a genuine, cheerful clap. But he said, I'm on the sidelines and I'm just going like this. And he said, that just makes me, it conditions me to know that's a positive sign, even if he's not feeling it inside, he's showing it on the outside.
That's awesome. And conditioning being the key word, that it just doesn't just happen overnight. That's something you got to work on and constantly work on. Yep. Awesome. All right, then we can go to the next slide. Welcome back, Michael.
My battery died. Wouldn't you know it?
No worries.
I tried to yell to my wife, Jill, can you get the charger? She's upstairs and couldn't hear me, so sorry about that.
No problem.
No worries. Technology. Okay, now we're going to talk about an awesome tool that you can use to help fill a player's emotional take. And it's based off of over 20 years of research of relationships and marriage and students and athletes. And it's a ratio of positives to criticism. And this magic number has been shown to do magical things. Imagine that. When people strive to get to this number, and more so when they even get to that number. And I'm wondering if you guys have an idea of what that ratio, how many positives does it take to balance out that number one criticism? Show of hands. Show of hands. Michael, I see 5.
Well, I was going to say 3.
3.
I'm going to say 2. I'm going to say 2. Double the positives.
Double the positives. Okay. Well, on page 32 of your book, there's actually a little excerpt about Phil Jackson, because the ratio is 5-to-1, and he is our PCA national spokesperson. You can read about his experience with Horace Grant, and this is where I would plug in a little video of him speaking of his experience. I think that would do better to describe and be more powerful and have people watch that. So I would do that right now. And then see how amazing this is, and then go into this 5-to-1 ratio doesn't have to be done all at once. That would be super hard to do. And as the book mentions in chapter 6, there's a bunch of tools that you can use to help fill the emotional tank. And sometimes you can use players or you can use assistant coaches. I like to use what's on page 34, or maybe it's 36, the positive charting, where I have a printout of everybody's names, and then I also have their effort goals listed to that. So during practice, I can sit down or at the end of it or throughout practice and write a positive comment that holds me accountable to looking for this and conditions me. And during games, I like to give this to an assistant coach to fill out as well. So at the end of the game, we can go over this positive ratios.
Yeah,
and that's
awesome.
That's what I have.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. You actually had about 12 minutes, just to let you know. I realized I didn't hit start on my clock until about 2 minutes in. So that was great, though. You hit a lot of material in a short amount of time, so that was good. All right. Yeah. I think you did a lot of great things. I think you just have such a great voice to listen to. You sound like that radio announcer voice. I mean, it is. It's a very pleasant voice to hear, and I don't say that about everybody. You're very confident in your tone, and it's, you make me want to listen more just by the way you were speaking. You weren't rushing. You were calm, and you were listening, and you had good facial expression. So I think physically, you do a nice job at conveying that. I liked a lot of the things that you were saying, a lot of the questioning. Again, I know it's a lot of the same stuff that I do, but I think you did it well. You weren't stumbling, and asking to get the coaches to really visualize players and how they look will help them next time they go out to their field or their court or whatever to see that player who's slumped and slow, and it'll trigger. Wait, that kid's got a low tank. Instead of just going, I wonder what happened to him or whatever. Now they're gonna connect that to empty tank. Now I know what to do about it. I need to be truthful and specific. So I thought that was really good too. I like the way you tied it to culture, because that's something a lot of times that we forget, that this whole thing is about creating a positive culture. And filling emotional tanks, just for you and Mike also, I think I mentioned that we are in the process of renovating or updating this PowerPoint, and we're actually flip-flopping it. So filling the emotional tank is going to be first. It's going to be the first principle, because we just feel the power of positivity is so important that it sort of overshadows. The other principles are all connected as well. But filling the emotional tanks, if you can get that simple concept down, then the mastery focus and honoring the game will just follow suit. So just to let you know, we are bumping this up, I guess bumping up the priority, if you want to call it that. But it is all tied to culture. So I think that was great the way you talked about, the culture on your team is connected to the energy, and you can see that. You can feel it when you walk into a practice. If there's a positive culture, you're gonna know it. And using words like portable, home team advantage, all that stuff, I think was great. The only suggestion I would have for you is to, you got the audience involved, and I thought that was great. I like to have the audience think about their own team a little bit more. So instead of just having somebody call out, like, what does a kid look like, maybe turn to a person next to you and share with them a player that you find comes to practice a lot with an empty tank, and what's your plan? Like maybe at the end, what's your plan on how you can help them? Be specific, because when I go through these, all of these things to fill the tank, I also like to bring up that they don't work for everybody. Not every player is exactly the same, and knowing your players is probably the most important thing. So, maybe for one kid, just a nonverbal high five or smile will work, but somebody else really needs you to listen to them and say, you know what, Anna, I really love the way you played defense on that girl. That was awesome. What I'd love to see you do is be a little bit more aggressive on offense. Really appreciating that. So that would be my only suggestion. And the only other, remind me when you guys are done. I have another. Remind me before, I don't want to cut Michael off, but remind me again. I'm going to show you another. I'm going to explain to you another example besides the basket one that that I've done a couple times. It worked out really well too. But I'm not going to tell you yet. I want to see what Mike does first. Mike, did you want to give any feedback to Anna?
I too liked what you had to say. You brought up some things that I hadn't thought about bringing up, so I'll probably steal those along the way. Two, I do like how you presented yourself, and you were confident in what you were talking about, and I think that's important. I was impressed with what you had to say, and I can understand it's a little hard when you don't have control of changing the stuff at that time, but I think you handled it well, and I too like the portable home coaching. That's an advantage that I haven't implemented into my thinking, and I think I need to add that in there too.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
The only other comment actually that I brought up that I forgot to mention, I like the way you brought up girls, especially. I like to bring up in my workshops the difference, especially with a little bit in mastery, but especially with filling emotional tanks, the differences in coaching girls and boys. And if you do have experience with coaching girls, I think it's pretty obvious that the emotional tank levels are more important with girls, but it's very important with boys, but they manifest it in different ways. So I've been asked that a lot in workshops, because what I'm finding is in the last 6 years, we've got a lot more male coaches coaching female teams. And I like to bring that up in the workshops, the importance of realizing that, girls, they wear their heart on their sleeve. You're going to know exactly when their tanks are not full. So if you have a team of the same age, 12-year-old boys, and their tank is low, how as a team is that going to manifest itself? They're not going to be like emotional and picking on each other. But they're also, so I like to bring up differences. And there's not like a textbook answer that I give, but just drawing from experience of coaches that have coached boys, if you have experience with boys, how boys usually tend to close up. Whereas when girls' emotional tank is low, they tend to lash out, and boys tend to close up. So just to be aware of some of the major differences between coaching males and boys.
I like that. Yeah, and then that also plays into, like you mentioned, the uniqueness of how we need to fill their tanks, and talking about it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep. All right. Mike, you're up. Are you good with using this? I know it's not as cool as the way you had it, but would that work for you?
Yeah, if you could go to the slide prior to that, there you go.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. All right.
You
ready?
Yep, ready. I'm going to be fair and give you 12 minutes, too. If I gave Anna 12, I'll give you 12.
So what I'm talking, or the people I'm talking to, are high school coaches, because that's how I got involved in the PCA, was through one of the speakers. So my audience is a group of high school coaches, male and female, of various sports. All right, so we talked already a little earlier about the first principle of the PCA, which is the elm tree of mastery, and we talked about how effort, learning, and mistakes are okay, are very important to helping us have successful teams. In a moment, we're going to talk about the second one, and we just talked about one way that we can fill the emotional tank, or, excuse me, can I start over? I apologize.
No, you're good.
I'm a little... Okay. All right. So we talked just a minute ago about the first principle of the PCA, and that was the elm tree of mastery. Effort, learning, and mistakes are okay. And then we just added to your toolkit, the toolkit that's important for every coach to have about how to build up and help a player who has a problem if they make a mistake and kind of dwell on it. And we talked about the mistake ritual and some ways that they can be helped to overcome that. Now, another principle we want to talk about is the second principle, and that's filling the emotional tank of our players. And I want to bring up a story here, and here I would have a slide. I have a car, and the car is a 1973. It's a Mini Cooper from England, and it's a gorgeous car. It was actually the exact car that was used in the movie The Bourne Identity. Have you guys seen that with Jason Bourne? The little car, red car. Well, that car is the car that I actually, it's my wife's car. And is there a time where you guys have had a car that's your favorite? Have either one of you guys had a car that was your favorite car that you've had?
I have not yet owned that car yet, but that will be coming. When my midlife crisis hits, that's when that car will be coming.
How about you, Anna?
I've had an idea of it, but no, I haven't had it yet. But I can visualize it.
Well, the car that I have right now is actually my wife's, and it was her dad's. He was a diplomat in England, and it's this beautiful car. He died, though, and the car sat for 17 years, and it wasn't touched. And finally, her older brother got it, and they were trying to do something with it. He got it refurbished, and then he moved and had no place to keep the car, so he called us and asked my wife if she'd like to have the car. It was in London, England at the time, and she said sure. And so he had it transferred on a freighter to San Francisco, and then it was put on a flatbed truck and brought to Denver. And after much anticipation, one day, finally this truck shows up with the car on the back, and the driver drops the car off and has me sign a paper. And at the time, I was the only one home, and it's my wife's car, but I thought, oh, I just have to give it a test drive. So I get in this beautiful little Mini Cooper, and I take it, and I'm just going to go 1.5 miles away to the local golf course that I work at in the summertime. So I'm thinking, I'm Jason Bourne. I'm driving this car, and people are looking and whatever, and I drive down to the golf course. I go through the parking lot a few times with, I'm all Mr. Cool, and so then I decide I better get back home. So I start driving back home, and there's a hill leading up to my house, and unfortunately, the car started to sputter, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? This isn't good, and it sputtered again, and then it stopped, and I'm on the side of a hill, stopped in this little car that I just got that's my wife's, and I look, and wouldn't you know it, the gas tank is empty. I'm like, oh, no. Not only is my wife going to be mad at me, but I'm not sure how I'm going to get the car back home. So that kind of leads us into the second principle, which is filling the emotional tank. And if you were driving a car, obviously the car I had, I didn't know what was happening, but if you think about it, if you have a car, would you rather have one that has a full tank of gas or an empty one?
Full, all the way.
Full.
All right, so yes, we would rather have a full tank of gas, and the reasons for that are fairly obvious. With an empty tank, you're not going to go tank. You can go quite a ways, and I wish, and my story would have been a little bit different. But again, that leads us to principle 2 of the PCA, which is helping your players with their filling of their emotional tank. And if you could move to the next slide.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, this one?
There you go. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, when you're helping a player fill their emotional tank, it's one way to help team become more effective and more productive. It's research proven that if your players have full emotional tanks, that they're going to do better. So on a team, one of you come in with an emotional tank that's low or empty. Can you give me an example or two?
You broke up just a little bit. Ask the question again.
What would they look like?
What would the kids look like? Is that what you
coming
said?
in.
What would a player on your team look like if they were to come to a practice and have a low emotional tank?
They would be depressed.
Technology.
That's okay. Depressed,
That's okay.
lethargic, not into it at all.
Pouting, maybe in the corner, maybe not even getting in line for a drill.
Okay.
Did we lose him again?
And the coach, that's one thing successful.
Oh boy.
So when they have
He's trying so hard.
I know.
empty emotion.
Oh, there he goes.
Oh. He sounded like Star Wars there for a second.
He was so close. He was so close.
I know.
I have a similar story like that I like to tell. We were in St. John in the Virgin Islands, and I've told this in workshops before, and we had 17 of us, and we had a Jeep Wrangler, a convertible open-top Jeep Wrangler for the Virgin Islands, and then we had a minivan because we had to fit in the minivan. And so my husband every day would want to be the first one to the beach, so we were staying up in the mountains. He would, jump in the Wrangler first because it was open top and it was cool, and he would drive all over the place. And the one morning, he beat me to the car. I had to take the minivan with all the kids and all the junk and all the people, and he got in the Jeep, and we take off, and he was like, oh, I'm going to go ahead, and he zips ahead of us. I take the minivan. We're sitting on the beach for 20 minutes, and he's nowhere to be found. And his Jeep had no gas. And our minivan, although it wasn't ideal, wasn't fast and smooth and cool, ran out of gas. And we were sitting there enjoying the beach, and he was sitting there in the Virgin Islands with a bunch of cows and goats with me.
Good story.
All right, Michael. Sorry about that.
All right.
Can we hear you better? Go ahead. Now we can hear you.
I hope so. Okay, so on the other hand, if you have a practice and your players or a particular player comes in with a full emotional tank, you give me an example of what they might look like or act. What I would like in this case is turn and talk to one of the your fellow coaches, and ask them what a full emotional tank would look like.
All right, I'm going to turn to my partner, and we're going to talk about how they would be fired up and ready to go.
Yes.
All
I
right.
would notice when they walk into the court.
Arms held high.
All right, go next slide. Okay, so there are ways that we can fill their emotional tank, and I want to do a little role play here. I want you to think, if I'm a kicker for one of you, and it's just before halftime in the game, and they have a short field goal to tie the game. So they line up, it's just before halftime, they snap it, the kick is up, it's flying in the air, it looks good, but then it hits the goalpost and makes that weird sound, and it falls to the ground, and it's not good. Could you guys show me an example of maybe a non-verbal way that you would be draining the tank of your kicker? as you're walking off the field going into the locker room. Okay, very good, and that's common. How about some sarcasm?
Nice shot. Nice kick.
Yeah.
That was
Wasn't that
great.
hard? You've done this many
obviously,
times before.
if we're draining their emotional tank, chances are they're going to be unsuccessful when they come back and have a chance maybe to win the game at the end. Now, conversely, what we want to do as a PCA coach is to try and get them to have a full emotional tank. So if that same thing happens, the same scenario, the kick is up, it hits the goalpost and hits the ground, what is a positive, truthful, specific praise you might be able to give them in that case?
Nice strong ankle. You know, way to lock your ankle.
Way to focus on the kick.
Yeah, and that can be a little bit difficult, but we have to look for truthful and specific ways to build up their tank. And it's harder than just saying good job. Sometimes we get in that rut of saying good job, good try, you can do it, and we have to be a little more specific when we're doing it. Also, listening to them, asking them, what do you think went wrong and what can we do to possibly change that? And maybe most importantly is just the nonverbal cues, because 80% of our communication is nonverbal. So looking at them and just looking them in the eyes, just giving that little nod that it's okay, you're going to get the next one, is very important. So those are some ways that we can fill an emotional tank of our players and help them to be more successful. Now what I'd like to do is move to the next slide and then talk about one of the areas that we can put in your toolkit to help them do just that. So there is a ratio that is scientifically researched that helps players do better. There's no question about it. It's not guesswork. It's scientifically proven. Can you guys tell you what? I'm going to go with whoever their birthday is closest to today, between you two. Whose birthday is closest to today? Can you give me an idea? How many times do we need to be positive to negative?
My birthday's in June. It's pretty far.
Mine's in April, so I'll say, how about 3?
All right. So 3 to 1, and that's a great guess, but the research shows that it's actually 5 to 1 is the ratio, and then I'd hit the next slide. That will actually, it's called the magic ratio, because if you can try to give them specific, true, realistic praise, and give them nonverbal cues that are good and helping build their emotional tank, that it's going to help them perform better, and that's what we're trying to do. And as a PCA coach, that's what we want you to learn. So the magic ratio of 5 to 1 is important. For example, there was a basketball coach, very popular, you probably heard of him, John Wooden at UCLA. Have you guys heard of John Wooden?
I have.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah. Very popular coach. He won 10 national championships. Well, research went back and looked at his video of his practices, and in those practices, they counted how many times he was positive to negative. And in that research, it came out that 85% of the time he was being positive with his players and filling their emotional tanks. And that works out, oddly enough, to about 5 to 1. So if you think about it, that gentleman was so successful because he was using the magic ratio before we even came up with it. So that's a look at the second principle in the PCA, and we're going to move on to the third principle in just a moment.
All right. Well done.
Boy, it's a little difficult dealing with the technical stuff. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I were in control of what I was doing, but I understand that's how it goes. So.
You would, and you will. And I think every trainer at some point also has to deal with doing a workshop with no PowerPoint because of power failure, forgetting a chord, you know, something. So I once followed Jay Wright, Villanova's basketball coach. He was the keynote speaker, and I did a PCA talk right after him. And he said, "Oh no, use my laptop. Just plug your flash drive right into it." Middle of my PCA workshop, his laptop dies. He doesn't have a power cord, and I'm sitting there like, "Oh my gosh." Villanova's basketball coach, you didn't bring a charging cord? Come on. So I had to continue the workshop with no PowerPoint. So it's good to know what you're talking about, but it frazzles you a bit. Mike, I thought you seemed very calm and very poised, and I didn't notice you being frazzled at all. I'd almost like to see you relax a little bit more. You seem like, you're a teacher, aren't you, by trade?
Yeah.
You have a very teacher type environment to your workshops, which is fine. You can tell. But, I would love to see a little bit more, just relax a little bit, chill out a little bit. But I thought, your story was great. I love to start with a story. At first when, I time stories because I like to see how long they were, and your story was 4.5 minutes long, which is a little bit long for a story, especially to introduce something, because you get so focused into like, okay, where's he going with this? And I think it is a great story, but, I would definitely try to cut it down a little bit shorter. But I can, and I know I could. I was shooting for 60 seconds, so to hear that was 4 minutes long really is kind of mind-boggling. But I get the idea, and I know I can do that. I was just a little off because I didn't have the picture and whatever. So. Right. No, you started at 12 minutes, and at 8:06 you went on. You finished your story. So yeah, I keep track of this little stuff because you don't realize when you start telling a story. It's like, wow, did I really tell that for 4 minutes? But I think it was good. It proved a point. It got me thinking, and I thought it was funny. It showed your humor. Again, I think you used the PowerPoint well. I thought you did a nice job at getting us to talk and involving the audience. I thought it was great. This principle, I think, is one of the ones where a lot of people tend to just say, boom, 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 here's how you fill it. This is the bullet, 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 bullet. I call it click and spit. It's just like, here it is, here it is, here it is. So I like the way you made it more conversational, not necessarily just going down the list of what fills, what drains. And you did a nice job, too, both of you did, when, I like to ask first what fills and drains and then confirm it with what the research has shown. So I thought you did a nice job with that as well. John Wooden we are huge proponents at PCA of John Wooden, so I think, bringing him up is awesome, especially the 85%. I also bring it up when we talk about Elm Tree of Mastery. I like to bring up John Wooden as well, because he was also known as one that did not coach from the sidelines, which is kind of incredible considering how successful he was, that he sat on the sidelines pretty calmly most of the time. So I think that was cool to bring that up. So I think you did a great job. My only suggestion would just be to loosen up and have some more fun, because I think too, a lot of people, even trainers that do these workshops, we're used to being in class or at a clinic, and we at PCA really try to make this formal enough to get something out of it, but informal enough that it's different than a clinic, that it's different than just a class, that it's different than just me spitting information at you. We really want them to wrestle with these concepts, because the changing of a culture is not something they're going to do just by hearing the information. They really have to feel it and realize the importance of it. So that would be my list. What'd you say?
I think that will be the thing that will be the challenge for me is being more conversational, and I'm sure I'll be able to do it, but that will be the thing that's going to be the hardest for me. I know the material, and I think I can convey it well and motivate people, but it's just not being a teacher and being more of a talk, just kind of talking back and forth. So I'll get there, though.
And that's purposely why we call them workshops and not, lecture or clinic or training or class. We call them workshops because we want the coaches to put as much work into it as you do. So, that's really how they can own it. And it does. And I'm not going to say 100% of the trainers out there that are doing this are doing that in such a way. I just know that, in the last 2 years, I've been in charge of the new crew coming through, and I've heard a lot of positive things about, this new crop of trainers. Wow, they're really engaging, and they're really getting us thinking, and so I like to think that the training, as PCA has been around since 1998, the quality of trainers is improving like wildfire. When this first started, these were literally overhead projector slides, transparencies. So we've come a long way, and the quality of trainers has also improved, and the way we deliver messages has improved. Just looking since 1998 at the media and information at our fingertips, transparency slides aren't going to cut it anymore. So Anything you can do to make it real and interactive, I think, is great. Anna, did you have any feedback for Mike?
Yeah, I liked your story and the way you personalize it for yourself and got us engaging, thinking of personalizing it for ourselves. And I like the way you brought in some of those exercises too. I think it was the one and the full emotional tank and how to share it with a partner of someone that we can imagine. So that was super helpful. And I can tell you really know the content, which is neat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's great. Yep. Well, if you guys have another couple minutes, I just wrote down a couple things that I was going to share with you, just some different ways that I've seen this done since you guys, have gotten a chance to see a couple examples from the videos. One of the things that I like to do just real quick, especially if you have a big group, is when you go right from, here to, Jesse hangs his head. You've talked about the mistake ritual. One of the things you can do, as soon as Jesse comes out of the game, what's one of the first thing that coaches do? I see it happen all over the place. Coaches high five. Even the most negative coaches, a lot of times when a kid comes out, they'll give them a high five. So I want everyone to stand up right now, and I'm going to ask you, you've got 10 seconds to high five as many people as possible. And everybody stands up, and I just count to 10, and they just, and I just stop, and you just feel the energy in the room just go through the roof, just from high fiving. I didn't tell them to say anything or do anything at all. And then I'll say, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to turn to somebody next to you, and I want you to really appreciate something about that person. Just be truthful. Tell them one thing that you really, even if you've just met them, something you really appreciate and want to tell that person, truthful and specific. And then the buzz of the room kind of slows down. But then, I kind of lead into and I just stop there and I say, okay, now when we get into emotional tanks, when we get to what fills the tank and what drains the tank, what did you do in the beginning? Did you guys feel the energy in the room just by nonverbals of high-fiving? How many of you really like that? And a lot of people say, oh, yeah, that was great, that was great. But how many of you think if I call you a month from now and say, do you remember that workshop that you came to? What did that person that you barely knew, what did they say to you that you really appreciate? How many of you think you would remember it? And a lot of people said, I would remember it. I would remember exactly what they said because it stuck with them. It was important. So that's sort of where I lead in later to people are different and some people need their tank filled different ways. And sometimes high-fiving is important and nonverbals are exciting, but what you say to somebody that is truthful and specific is so much more powerful than, as you said, Anna, than just saying good job or way to go or nice work. That's all good, but it doesn't mean as much. That person's tank was probably filled 20 times more because they were able to actually say something honest. The other thing that I saw, and I actually picked this up from Hawaii, and I've done this now at a few more athlete workshops than coaches, but one of the coolest things, instead of doing the shooting and the basketball, they do rock, paper, scissors. And they'll have two volunteers come up. They've done it I've seen it done a couple ways. But they have two volunteers come up and they just do rock, paper, scissors in front of the whole group. And I want this side of the room, you're going to cheer for Anna. This side of the room, you're going to cheer for Mike. Mike, whoever loses, your team's going to drain their tank. Whoever wins, you guys are going to cheer. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. And the whole group sees, and we're like, oh, Anna won. So Anna's side of the room is cheering and jumping up and down and, so excited. And at the same time, Mike's side of the room is ripping them apart. Mike, you suck. How could you put scissors, you idiot? And then, okay, we're going to do it again. Rock, paper, scissors again. And, you do it about 3 times. And everybody in the room gets a chance to get up. They're all on their feet. They're all draining. They're all filling. They're all, and it's a silly, silly task like rock, paper, scissors. It literally means nothing. But it's amazing how you see the mood of, Anna and Mike who are up there like, ugh, this is hard. And it gets stressful. And it's, another way that I've seen that done, which I thought was cool too, and they've done this with athletes, is where you do a rock, paper, scissors tournament. And it's a single elimination tournament. So everybody grab a partner, you do rock, paper, scissors, you get 1 chance. Whoever wins goes on to the next person. Whoever loses becomes your cheerleader. So then you've got 4 people. Then you've got 2 against 2, but it's only 1 person going. So that person literally gets behind you and fills your tank and cheers you on. Whoever wins keeps going. Whoever loses gets behind you. And so by the end, you have the entire room split into 2, and everybody's cheering, and everybody's psyched up, and everybody's pumped up. So it's just a really fun way to just raise the energy level in a room, and this principle comes sort of smack in the middle of the workshop. So it's just something fun to talk about, how much fun and how much time did that take up? If you see that your team has just lost a lousy game yesterday, and they're showing up, and you notice that all your players' tanks are really low, wouldn't that be cool just to do a 10-minute rock, paper, scissors single elimination tournament? Look at how fired up everybody's going to be. So, just another idea. I thought that was great too. But I think both of you, I'm really excited to see what comes next and what you guys do. I'm really excited about what you're doing. And I love it. I tell people all the time, I steal as many ideas as I feedback. I give feedback on these hangouts, and half the time I'm writing down like, oh, I'm going to steal that. That was great. I love the way she said that, or I love the way he said that. So I really appreciate the time and the thought that you put into it. Do you guys have any questions for me about what else, what's coming up or anything?
We're just continuing on next week, right, as normal?
Next week's the last principle, honoring the game, and it's going to be similar to what I've done in the past. I'm going to model it, and you guys are going to be on the hangout. And then the following week is practice week. So the following week is where you get a chance to pick whichever principle you'd like to do. It's either the introduction to the workshop or one of the 3 principles. So you get to pick one of 4 choices. The one thing that I ask you to do, even if you do the Elm Tree of Mastery principle or honoring the game principle, is that you give me a 5-minute intro. How would you open up the workshop? So tell a little bit about yourself, what brought you to PCA, why you're here, why we should listen to you, just for about 5 minutes, and then jump into the principle that you choose. So.
And then say again, how long is that total?
It's 20 minutes total.
Okay.
Yeah, you have 20 minutes to use however you'd like to. And that is really a chance for the practice week. You can sign up for a slot to do the practice week in front of Ruben and myself to get some feedback, and I highly, highly encourage everybody to do it. Some people don't. And then the final week after that is where you do it for us to see if you're ready to go out and do this live. So that's why I encourage you to do the practice week. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to do the practice week. I don't feel that comfortable yet. But we don't give people 6 and 7 opportunities to try this again to see if you're ready to go out. We really, watch and we say, okay, I feel totally confident that you could go out with a certified trainer, deliver 1 principle in this workshop. And we have had people that we have certified right out of this course. They have wowed us so much in the very few. But we've had people right out of this course that we know have public speaking experience with crowds and workshops and said they're ready to go. They can go out and do a live workshop. Other people we've said, most of the people we say that we're going to make you an associate trainer, and you would be partnered up with a certified trainer at a workshop, and you would deliver maybe just the emotional tank principle, and the certified trainer would do the rest. And then there's other people that we say, we don't feel comfortable yet. Would you mind practicing again and set up a time next week where we can do this through a Google Hangout again? Because of one reason or another. So those are the 3 most likely options that we do. So if you guys have any questions on that, let me know. But next week's going to be sort of a regular week, the last week for the content and stuff.
Okay.
All right, and I know both of your areas, just to let you know, both of your areas are going to be months. So I just got an email. I said both of your regions are going to be very busy in the next couple months. I just got an email from Minnesota, Portland, and Denver that have all said, Kelly, do you have people coming out of your course? Because we have 52 workshops on the books in the next 3 months. And I'm like, oh, sure, yeah, I do. We're ready. So they are chomping at the bit to get you guys out there and certified.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. Good night.
Good night.